Anna stood near the edge of her parents' living room, holding a paper cup of cider that had long since gone cold. The house was full in the loud, polished way it always was during holidays. Too many voices layered over one another, forced laughter bouncing off framed family photos and carefully arranged furniture no one was allowed to sit on casually. Christmas Eve had always felt less like a celebration here and more like a performance. Across the room, her 10-year-old son, Ethan, hovered near the dessert table, his small shoulders tight beneath a sweater she had ironed that morning. He watched his cousins dart around him, their plates already heavy with cookies and pudding, their confidence effortless. Anna noticed how he waited, polite to a fault, hands folded together like he had been taught. Her mother, Helen, reached for the final slice of Christmas pudding, lifted it from the tray, and paused just long enough to draw attention. She glanced at Ethan, then turned toward the room with a laugh that landed sharp instead of warm. "Only family gets dessert," she said, waving the plate slightly as if it were a joke. A few people chuckled. Someone changed the subject. The room moved on instantly. Ethan did not. Before I continue, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and let me know in the comments where you're watching from today. Your one click really helps support the channel. He swallowed, forced a small smile, and murmured that he was not hungry anyway. Anna felt something shift inside her chest, not explode, not crack, but lock into place with sudden clarity. Anna did not argue. She did not raise her voice or demand an apology. She walked across the room, knelt beside Ethan, and told him softly to grab his coat. He obeyed without question, slipping his arms into the sleeves while the laughter behind them continued uninterrupted. Helen called after them, confused more than concerned, asking where they were going so soon. Anna answered calmly that they had everything they needed at home. The front door closed behind them with a solid, final sound that cut through the noise like a line drawn in ink. Outside, the cold air bit hard, but Anna barely felt it. She drove home through quiet streets while Ethan traced shapes in the fog on the window, careful not to cry. Their townhouse in Chicago was small and imperfect, but it was theirs. Anna hung up their coats, turned on the kitchen light, and announced they were making dessert anyway. She warmed milk, stirred in cocoa, topped it with the last of the whipped cream, and handed Ethan a mug that steamed between his hands. They curled up on the couch with a corny holiday movie playing softly. Halfway through, Ethan asked in a small voice if he had done something wrong. Anna paused the movie and told him the truth without dressing it up. He had done nothing wrong. What happened was not about him. He listened carefully, nodding, though she could see him filing the hurt away where children store things they do not know how to fix yet. That night, after Ethan fell asleep, Anna sat alone in the dark hallway and let herself feel what she had ignored for years. The humiliation had not been new. She had swallowed moments like that her entire life, smoothing things over, excusing behavior, telling herself it was easier to let things go. But watching it aimed at her child had broken something open instead of down. The next morning, her alarm rang at 7, and for a brief moment she forgot why her chest felt tight. Then she saw her phone. 33 missed calls from Helen. 1 voicemail. Anna made coffee before listening, bracing herself. Her mother's voice was frantic, sharp with panic. She talked about lawyers, paperwork being sealed, the risk of losing the house and retirement. She said Anna needed to call back immediately. There was no mention of Ethan. No apology. No acknowledgement of the night before. Anna stood barefoot on the cold tile and understood something with painful clarity. This was not about family. It was about control. After her divorce, her father, Richard, had offered help that always came with strings, suggestions about deeds, assets, and what made sense for everyone. When Anna had said no, she had been treated like a problem instead of a daughter. Now, once again, her name mattered only because it was in the way. Anna did not return the call. She sent a single text instead, clear and final. Helen had made it very clear that Anna and Ethan were not family. Any legal or financial issues should be handled with their lawyer. Then Anna blocked the number, not forever, just long enough to hear herself think. An hour later, her phone rang again. This time it was her brother, Mark. He sounded unsettled, like someone realizing a carefully balanced story no longer held. He asked what had happened, said their parents were spiraling, talking about ungrateful children and lawyers. Anna told him exactly what had been said at the dessert table. She did not soften it. Mark went quiet. When he finally spoke, he admitted he had always convinced himself their mother was just stressed, that it was easier to let things slide. Anna told him she was done doing that. If they were not family at the table, they were not family at the bank. Mark hesitated, then asked what she wanted him to do.
That question changed everything.
It was no longer about pudding or Christmas.
It was about a legacy built on silence and compliance.
That afternoon, Anna saw a photo on social media. Her parents' living room glowing, everyone smiling, captioned with words about being blessed by family.
The picture had been taken after she and Ethan left.
They were not just excluded from the table. They were erased. When Anna's sister, Sarah, texted her later, the message was brief and dismissive.
Their mother said Ethan had been difficult. It had been a joke. Anna was overreacting.
Anna read the words and understood they were not having the same conversation. Sarah had always been protected, favored, explained away. Anna had always been expected to adapt. She replied once, stating plainly that jokes made at a child's expense were not jokes.
Then she stopped engaging. Instead, she pulled out an old notebook and began writing.
She listed every moment that now made sense in hindsight. The missed birthdays, the favors turned into debts, the money used as leverage disguised as generosity.
Seeing it written down steadied her.
Later that day, Mark suggested they meet somewhere neutral. Over coffee, he explained what their parents had not wanted Anna to know. Her name was still tied to property in Michigan through old repairs she had helped pay for. Nothing significant could move without her consent.
That was why Helen was panicking.
Anna listened quietly and said she did not want revenge or theft. She wanted separation. Whatever was legally hers needed to be protected so it could never be used against her or her son again.
Mark warned her that doing this would end the illusion of normalcy.
Anna thought of Ethan's forced smile and answered without hesitation.
Normal had already cost too much.
2 days after meeting Mark at the coffee shop, Anna received an email that tightened her stomach before she finished the first sentence. The subject line mentioned family trust concerns, followed by the name of her parents' lawyer. The message was written in careful, polished language, the kind designed to sound reasonable while quietly asserting authority. It warned of tax penalties, long-term financial risks, and irreversible consequences if Anna chose to distance herself from established family planning. It suggested that sudden decisions could jeopardize her parents' retirement and implied that cooperation would be in everyone's best interest. The email never mentioned Ethan. It framed Anna not as a co-owner or adult, but as a wayward participant who needed guidance. She read it twice, then forwarded it to the independent lawyer Mark had contacted, adding a single question. Was any of this actually true, or was it pressure dressed up as concern? While she waited for a response, Anna stood in her quiet kitchen and replayed the pattern she knew too well. Her parents only used words like boundaries and legacy when they were losing control. They believed love meant leverage, and generosity meant obedience.
This email was no different. It was not meant to inform her. It was meant to scare her back into place. The lawyer called that afternoon and spoke plainly.
Some of what the email claimed was technically accurate, he explained, but it was incomplete and intentionally framed to intimidate. Any responsible professional would have contacted Anna directly without involving emotional pressure. He confirmed that her name on the Michigan property meant no sale, refinance, or restructuring could happen without her explicit consent. In fact, her parents' urgency suggested they had assumed she would never challenge them.
Hearing that settled something in her. Anna was not being reckless. She was being inconvenient.
With the lawyer's guidance, she drafted a response that felt foreign and empowering at the same time. She stated her legal interests clearly, refused consent for any changes without written approval, and requested a full accounting of the trust and property activity over the last 5 years. She ended by instructing all future communication to come directly to her or her counsel. When she sent the email, she did not wait for a reaction. She went back to her routine, loading the dishwasher, helping Ethan with homework, reading before bed.
For the first time, asserting herself did not feel dramatic. It felt overdue.
It took less than an hour for Helen to find another way through. A voicemail came from the old house phone, her voice strained and sharp. She accused Anna of complicating things, of risking her parents' future, of overreacting to one small moment. She said the cabin was their retirement and implied that Ethan needed to learn respect. The words hit harder than Anna expected.
There was still no apology. No acknowledgement of the humiliation. Just justification.
When Helen said this was how children learn discipline, Anna stopped the message before it finished.
She sent the transcript to Mark without comment.
He called immediately, anger clear in his voice. He told her he was done pretending. Their parents had called him twice that morning to complain about lawyers and assets and had not once asked about their grandson. That silence mattered more than anything said aloud. Anna told him to let them sit with it. For years, Their parents had relied on immediate forgiveness to reset the balance. This time, the quiet stayed. And in that quiet, the truth had space to settle. The next message came from Sarah, sharp and defensive. She accused Anna of dragging lawyers into family matters and punishing their parents out of jealousy. She claimed their parents trusted her for a reason and implied Anna had always resented that. Anna read the message once and recognized the familiar deflection. Sarah believed being chosen was proof of love, not a method of control.
Anna replied simply. She was not jealous of favoritism. She was tired of being treated as backup.
Her parents had not called when Ethan was hurt. They had only called when their money was threatened.
Anna was not turning family into a transaction. She was refusing to be collateral. She put her phone face down and did not pick it up again that night.
Instead, she sat on the floor helping Ethan build something out of plastic blocks while he explained his ideas with serious concentration. Watching him, Anna felt the difference between obligation and responsibility.
One demanded silence.
The other demanded action. About a week later, just as the noise seemed to fade, Anna saw the next move coming before it fully landed. A notification appeared on her phone, a public event invitation from Helen. The title was cheerful and deliberate, Holiday Family Reconciliation Dinner, decorated with seasonal icons. The description spoke of forgiveness, healing, and the importance of family coming together. The photo showed her parents' house glowing warmly, every light on, the perfect image of unity.
Anna scanned the guest list.
Neighbors, church friends, Sarah and her children, Mark.
Her name was missing.
The comments were already filling with praise for Helen's generosity and strength. Anna felt a familiar twist in her stomach.
This was not an invitation. It was a performance.
A chance to rewrite the story before anyone else could speak. Moments later, Mark sent her a screenshot with a single question. Was she seeing this? Anna stared at the screen, understanding the stakes. If she stayed away, her parents would control the narrative.
If she showed up, the truth might finally surface.
After a long pause, she typed her answer. If we go, at least we get to tell it honestly. On the evening of the reconciliation dinner, Anna left Ethan with a trusted neighbor and drove alone to her parents' house.
She did not tell him where she was going.
There was no reason to pull him back into a place that had already made its message clear. The neighborhood looked carefully staged, lights glowing on every porch, cars lining the street as if attendance itself were proof of success. From the driveway, Anna could hear laughter and music spilling into the cold air. Inside, the house buzzed with conversation. Neighbors held glasses of wine. Church friends balanced plates of food. Sarah stood near the tree, laughing easily while her children ran freely through rooms Ethan had once navigated carefully.
Helen spotted Anna immediately.
Surprise flashed across her face before it smoothed into delight. She stepped forward with open arms and a loud greeting meant for nearby ears.
Anna did not return the hug.
Mark appeared beside her without a word, his presence steady. For a moment, everything hovered in polite uncertainty. Then Richard tapped his glass and called for attention, thanking everyone for coming, speaking about difficult times and the strength of family. Helen dabbed her eyes and added that misunderstandings happened, but blood always mattered. Anna felt the familiar tightening in her chest. The script was unfolding exactly as expected. As the applause faded, Mark stepped forward just enough to be heard. His voice was calm, but it carried. He said it was interesting to hear about family when only days earlier Helen had looked at Ethan and told him only family deserved dessert.
The room went still.
Helen froze, napkin halfway to her face.
Richard's smile faltered.
Mark continued, laying out the moment clearly, without exaggeration or anger. He explained how Anna had left quietly with her son and how the next morning had brought dozens of calls, not to apologize, but to protect assets once lawyers became involved.
Someone near the sofa shifted uncomfortably.
A neighbor spoke up, confirming she had been there and heard the comment herself. Helen tried to laugh it off, calling it a joke, blaming sensitivity. She turned to Anna, asking her to confirm it had not been meant seriously. Every eye in the room landed on Anna. She felt the old instinct to smooth things over rise briefly. Then she remembered Ethan's voice asking if he had done something wrong.
She said no. Helen had meant it. She always had. Christmas had only made it visible.
Richard slammed his glass onto the counter and accused Anna of dragging private matters into public view. He said everything they had built was for their children and that this was how they were repaid. Anna answered calmly that what they had built was not for love but for leverage. They had only reached out when her name blocked their plans, not when her child was hurt. The room remained silent, heavy with discomfort. Helen cried openly now, accusing Anna of destroying the family and their legacy over a single refusal. Anna corrected her.
This was not about one moment. It was about a pattern of choosing control over kindness and then calling it love. Mark placed a hand on Anna's shoulder and said they were leaving.
They walked to the door together while their parents stood rooted in the center of the room, their audience watching them not with admiration, but with doubt. Outside, the cold air felt clean. Anna did not look back. By the time Anna reached home, messages were already circulating. Screenshots of the event sat beside quiet questions and uneasy observations. Her parents had wanted an audience. They had simply lost control of the narrative. In the days that followed, the noise faded. No dramatic apologies came. No public explanations followed. The silence was heavier than the arguments had ever been. Anna used it to finish what she had started. With the lawyer's help, she formally separated her interests from anything her parents could manipulate. Her portion of the Michigan property was locked to her and, eventually, to Ethan. No sale, loan, or restructuring could happen without her consent. Mark made his own decisions, adjusting his role in the trust so it could no longer be used as a safety net for reckless spending. Nothing they did was illegal or vindictive. It was simply precise. For the first time, their parents' wealth no longer functioned as a leash. The next attempt came quietly, not through lawyers or social media, but through a knock on Anna's door one gray afternoon. Helen stood on the stoop holding a tin of cookies. Richard hovered beside her, rigid and rehearsed. They said they needed to talk, that family should not let things go this far. Anna listened without inviting them in. They spoke about fear, about retirement, about sacrifices made. When Richard said Anna was throwing away her inheritance over a misunderstanding, she corrected him. This was not about money. It was about dignity. She told them she had not taken anything from them. She had only stopped allowing her name to be used against her child. When Richard asked to see Ethan, Anna refused. Until they could apologize without excuses, they were not safe for him. Helen cried harder at that, but still did not say she was sorry. Anna closed the door gently and stood there until their footsteps faded. Inside, she could hear Ethan humming to himself as he built something new, unaware that the people who once denied him dessert were finally learning what it meant to lose control. In the weeks that followed, nothing dramatic happened, and that absence of chaos felt unfamiliar. Anna's phone stayed quiet. There were no frantic messages, no indirect pleas through relatives or neighbors. The silence created space she had never had before. At first, she caught herself reaching for her phone out of habit, half expecting another crisis to manage. Each time, she stopped and reminded herself why the quiet existed. It was not punishment. It was protection. Ethan adjusted quickly to the new routine. He laughed more easily, slept better, and stopped asking when they would visit his grandparents again. One evening, as they ate dinner on the couch, he asked whether family always had to mean staying even when people were unkind. Anna told him the truth in simple terms. Family was supposed to make you feel safe. Anyone who demanded pain in exchange for belonging was choosing control over care. Ethan accepted this with the seriousness of someone learning a rule that would matter later. Anna realized then that the hardest part of walking away had already passed. What remained was learning how to live without bracing for impact. Mark came by one night with pizza and a stack of old movies. He looked lighter than Anna had ever seen him. Ethan pulled him into the living room to show him a structure he had built from blocks, a cabin with a hand-drawn sign taped to the roof that read, "No mean people allowed." Mark laughed until he had to wipe his eyes. They ate together without ceremony, sauce on paper plates, no careful monitoring of behavior or tone. At one point, a character on screen delivered a speech about family being everything. Ethan glanced at Anna, then muted the television and asked if that was always true. Anna shook her head. Sometimes family was chosen, she explained. Sometimes it was the people who stayed, listened, and apologized when they were wrong. Blood did not grant permission to hurt someone. Mark nodded quietly, as if hearing words he had needed his entire life. When he left, Anna felt a sense of peace that had nothing to do with forgiveness and everything to do with clarity. Through neighborhood conversations, Anna learned that her parents' world had narrowed. Invitations slowed. Familiar faces appeared less often at their door. Some people still believed Helen's version of events, but others had seen enough to step back. The Michigan cabin sat empty more often that winter, not because it was inaccessible, but because it no longer served its original purpose. It was no longer a stage for curated family moments. Anna did not feel satisfaction at this. She felt distance. Her parents still had their house, their belongings, their carefully arranged photos, but the attention they relied on had thinned. For the first time, they had to sit with the reality they had avoided for years. Anna did not know whether they would ever understand what they had done.
She no longer needed to. That responsibility had never truly been hers.
Late one night, after Ethan was asleep, Anna sat at the kitchen table with a mug of tea and thought about the word legacy. For her parents, it had meant property, accounts, and a story where they were always generous and wronged. For her, it had become something quieter. It was the lesson Ethan would carry forward, that love without respect was not love at all, and that walking away could be an act of strength.
Anna knew some people would never understand her choice.
They would say she should have kept the peace, stayed silent, accepted what was offered. But peace that required erasing her child was not peace.
It was surrender. She had not destroyed her family.
She had stopped standing in harm's way and calling it home. As winter gave way to early spring, Anna noticed how ordinary her life had become.
Mornings were calmer. Evenings passed without tension.
The absence of constant negotiation felt like freedom. She did not know if reconciliation would ever be possible, or if it should be. What she knew was this: Ethan was growing up in a home where his place was never questioned.
The people around him were chosen carefully and stayed accountable.
Anna had learned that protecting her peace was not selfish.
It was necessary.
Whatever her parents chose to do next was no longer her concern. She had already made her decision, and it was holding. One afternoon, while walking home from school, Ethan asked Anna if he could invite a friend over for dinner the following week. The request was simple, but it caught her attention. He explained that his friend's house felt loud in a bad way sometimes and that he liked how calm theirs was.
Anna agreed without hesitation.
That evening, as they set the table together, she noticed how naturally Ethan moved through the space, no longer tentative or watchful.
He belonged there without conditions.
Anna realized that what she had built since Christmas was not an absence of family, but a different kind of foundation, one defined by consistency and trust. It was quieter than the house she grew up in, but it was honest. There were no performances here, no roles to maintain.
Just presence.
That, she understood, was what safety looked like when it was allowed to exist. Spring arrived fully, bringing longer days and open windows. Anna did not hear from her parents. There were no apologies wrapped in excuses, no attempts to bargain. Mark remained in contact with them at a distance, firm and measured.
Sarah stayed silent.
Anna accepted this without bitterness. Some relationships ended not with a dramatic break, but with the realization that continuing them would require abandoning yourself. She focused instead on the life unfolding in front of her. School projects spread across the kitchen table, shared meals, small routines that added up to something stable. When she thought about the future, it no longer felt like something she had to defend.
It felt like something she could plan.
One night, after Ethan had gone to bed, Anna stood in the doorway of his room and watched him sleep. His face was relaxed, unburdened by the question he had once asked at a dessert table. She understood then that the moment she had closed her parents' door had also closed another one behind her, the door that led back to silence and self-erasure.
She had not lost her family. She had chosen one.
And in doing so, she had given her son something far more valuable than inheritance or approval. She had shown him that love does not demand endurance of harm.
It offers protection.
The house was quiet, steady, and whole. For the first time in her life, Anna knew she was exactly where she was meant to be. Thank you for watching until the end. If this story resonates with you, please share your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like the video. It really helps support the stories shared here.